She fed a homeless white man for years. Then the U.S. National Guard showed up at her wedding. The world stopped as Angela Caldwell heard the sharp crack of military boots on marble. Her white lace train whispered across the floor as she turned, bouquet trembling in her hands. 6 uniformed National Guardsmen stood at attention at the back of the church, their presence as unexpected as a thunderstorm on a cloudless day. Angela's eyes locked on the tall figure in the center, a face she'd never thought she'd see again, not like this, not today. The man who once couldn't afford a sandwich now wore military medals across his chest. "They're here for him," whispered her sister. "The homeless man, they're here for Thomas." 5 years earlier, Angela Martinez had been nothing special, just another 52-year-old nurse working double shifts at County General. Her little brick house sat 3 blocks from the abandoned Woolworths where the neighborhood's homeless gathered. Most mornings, she'd hurry past with her eyes averted, clutching her purse a little tighter, the way her mother had taught her back in '83 when the recession hit and the streets filled with the desperate. But Thomas Woodrow was different. He sat apart from the others, a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird balanced on his knees, his white beard neatly trimmed despite his ragged clothes. Angela first noticed him during the record-breaking winter of 2020, huddled in the same spot day after day, a cardboard sign at his feet reading, "Vietnam vet, anything helps." "Coffee?" she'd asked one morning, extending a steaming cup from the diner around the corner. "Cream, no sugar, I guessed." Thomas had looked up, blue eyes startling in his weathered face. "You guessed right, first time since '78. His voice carried the soft drawl of America's heartland, reminding Angela of the farm boy soldiers from M*****S**H reruns her father had loved. That cup of coffee became a ritual, then sandwiches, then Tupperware containers of her mother's Puerto Rican arroz con pollo that reminded her of Sunday dinners with vinyl records playing softly in the background. Angela never asked why a white veteran with kind eyes and educated speech lived on the streets. In a neighborhood where questions were dangerous currency, some mysteries were better left untouched. "My grandson would have been your age," Thomas told her 6 months into their friendship as Angela sat beside him on the bench, sharing her lunch break and stories about her upcoming wedding to Frank, a widower she'd met at church. "If he'd lived, car accident in '92, I was driving. After that, his mother, my daughter, she couldn't look at me anymore." Angela's hand found his, the skin papery and cool despite the summer heat. "I'm sorry," she said, meaning it more than any words she'd spoken in years. "I enlisted after Woodstock," Thomas continued, eyes distant. "My unit, we saw things, did things. When I came home, everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. Then Lauren was born, and for 20 years I had purpose again." His fingers tightened around hers. "After the accident, I just walked away. Easier than watching your child's heart break every time she sees your face." Each morning, Angela would look for him, worry gnawing at her when his spot remained empty. She'd begun bringing extra medications from the hospital, nothing controlled, just blood pressure pills and vitamins. Frank worried about her involvement with that homeless fellow, his voice tinged with the same suspicion as their neighbors when they whispered about the white man who'd chosen their predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. "He served our country," Angela would reply, the words a shield against their judgment, "and everyone deserves dignity." In their 3rd year of friendship, Thomas disappeared for 2 weeks. Angela searched shelters and hospitals, panic rising like floodwater. When he returned, thinner and paler, he refused to say where he'd been. "Just some government business," he'd muttered. "Old promises collecting dust." A month before her wedding, Thomas vanished again. This time, Angela feared the worst. The pandemic had been especially cruel to the homeless, and Thomas, despite his resilience, was in his 70s. She'd placed a small white rose in his usual spot, a private memorial for a friend the world had forgotten. Until now. The church fell silent as the lead guardsman approached the altar. Frank's hand found Angela's, steadying her as the officer removed his cap. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, his voice carrying to the farthest pew. "I'm Colonel James Peterson of the 104th. I understand you know Master Sergeant Thomas Woodrow." Angela's throat tightened. "I brought him coffee and food. Is he—" "Very much alive, ma'am," the colonel replied, "and the reason we're here." From behind the formation emerged Thomas, transformed in a dark suit that couldn't hide his military bearing. The years of homelessness clung to him like shadows, but his eyes, those kind blue eyes, remained unchanged. "You saved my life, Angela," Thomas said, his voice stronger than she'd ever heard it. "Not just with the medication, but with your kindness. When my unit learned what you'd done, they insisted on being here." The truth unfolded like an old map, revealing territories Angela had never imagined. Thomas hadn't been an ordinary soldier, but a decorated intelligence officer whose classified work had made him targets both foreign and domestic. His retirement to homelessness had been partly strategic, partly a response to his personal tragedy. The government had never truly forgotten him. They'd been watching from a distance, ensuring his safety while respecting his choice to disappear. "Your friendship gave me a reason to reconnect," Thomas explained, as the wedding guests murmured in astonishment. "Last month, I finally agreed to help with one last operation, something only I could do." The National Guard unit had come not just to honor Thomas, but to protect him, and by extension, Angela and her guests. The one last operation had stirred old enemies, and Thomas's cover was irreparably blown. As Angela walked down the aisle as Mrs. Frank Caldwell, she felt the weight of Thomas's gift, not just his presence or the protection of his unit, but the reminder that compassion bridged the chasms of race, class, and circumstance. For years, she'd thought she was saving a homeless man, never suspecting he'd been quietly guarding her all along. "Sometimes," Thomas whispered as he hugged her at the reception, "the National Guardsmen maintaining a respectful perimeter. The people we think need saving are actually saving us." Have you ever witnessed an unexpected act of kindness that changed everything? Subscribe now to hear more stories that remind us how connected we truly are, despite our differences. In the years that followed, Angela and Frank's home became a gathering place for veterans of all backgrounds. The neighborhood that had once whispered in suspicion now pointed with pride to their National Guard hero. Thomas, finally reconciled with his daughter after 30 years of separation, moved into the apartment above Angela's garage. His intelligence work now focused on veteran advocacy. The world, Angela reflected on her 5th anniversary, was full of unexpected guardians, some in uniform, some in rags, all worthy of the simple dignity of being seen. What unexpected connections have shaped your life? Subscribe, comment below, and share where you're watching from. Your story might be more extraordinary than you know.